Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
Doing well.
Awesome. So we still have some people joining and we're 1 minute early, but I'm gonna get started, set up here. So can you see my screen, FutureFeed?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so let's see. It's 1 o'clock and it looks like we have a decent turnout, so I'm gonna get started. This session is being recorded, just so you all are aware. After I end today's call, about an hour after I end the call, you'll get a link emailed to you to where you can find this recording. It is an open session, okay? This is open to all FutureFeed users, so just be aware that there are other organizations, companies on today's call. And give me 1 second here. Okay, you still see FutureFeed, right? Compliance dashboard.
Yep. It's still good.
All right. Okay, so this is training number 1 for end.
Say, hey, I was out in this area, you can do that, but that's up to you.
And sorry, I just muted the person who was speaking, just to let you know. Um, so this is training session number 1 for end users. Today I'm going to cover this dashboard area of FutureFeed, cover start area, people, tools, and documents, and then I'm going to stop there. In the second session, then we cover assessing system security plan and your POAM. Okay, so after today's session, I ask that you take what you learned today and try to apply it. And then once you feel that you have learned, what we've covered today, go ahead and sign up for that second session. If you log into FutureFeed and you scroll to the bottom, you'll see 2 links. So if you ever want to sign up for any of our training, you can hit register here and it's going to bring you to our training page. So you'll be signing up for this training session number 2 in the future. But you're welcome to sign up for as many of these as you want. The other thing I want to point out to you all is this 15 minutes with FutureFeed link here. So I have a weekly open office. I have weekly open office hours. It's on Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you sign up for this once, it's going to be, it's a weekly meeting, so it'll be on your calendar every week, and you could just join the weeks that you have questions about anything FutureFeed or CMMC or NIST 800-171. Um, so that's a informal, just open meeting, ask anything. Usually great discussions happen there. So that's every Thursday, and that's where you would sign up for that. So outside of the training that we offer here and that weekly session, other areas where you could look to get information or answers about FutureFeed. So in all of the pages here of FutureFeed, you'll see getting started guides. So here I'm in the people section of FutureFeed. If I click on the getting started guides, it's going to tell me about manage users, how to add, how to create accounts, all that good stuff. If I click over here under tools and documents, then the getting started guides are going to talk to me about on-prem tools. So the getting started guides are different. If I click over, I'm on on-prem. If I click to online, it's going to show me the online user manual stuff. Okay. So whatever page you're on, if you have any questions with what to do in that section or how to do it, check out those getting started guides. Another area you can look for is up here in the user settings. So click on the user icon in the top right corner. There's the help center. So notice here I'm logged in. You will want to be logged in. If you've never visited this website, you'll have to create an account. It's free. It's just where we host our knowledge base articles for FutureFeed. And you will want to be signed in so that way you can get access to all of the articles. But here's where you could search for more answers if you need to. Okay. All right, so let's get started. And I'm working on one screen today, so if you happen to have a question or I cover something too fast, just feel free to interrupt me. Ask questions as we go. I really like the engagement. Or if you'd prefer, you can type up your questions in the chat and I will look at that every once in a while. All right, so in the dashboard area here, when you log into FutureFeed, this is also where you will land the compliance dashboard page. So it's just a nice graphical representation of, overall compliance status. Some data here. You can filter on the different controls, and then you can even drill down to the objective level and see compliance at the objective level. If I open in Assess or open in SSP, it's going to bring me to two different sections of FutureFeed where that requirement is being listed if I want to get into more detail or make some edits. That's the compliance dashboard. To the right of that, we have an assessment prep center. So how, I would recommend using this page is, well, first, let me tell you what it is, I guess. So it lists out all of the sections of FutureFeed. It lists out all of the pages of FutureFeed. We call them subway stops. Okay, so for example, here in the top menu, you see the people subway stop. All right, here's your people subway stop pages. Okay, so all of the pages of FutureFeed are listed here. And let me click on this contract manager one. So here I'm in the contract manager section of FutureFeed. And you'll see this compliance review box up here. That page that I was just on, that assessment prep center, links directly to this this little box here, this compliance review box. So what it is your ability to assign the different pages of FutureFeed to someone in your company for the purpose of maybe filling out that information or even reviewing that information to make sure it's accurate. Or so if I just want to send to Jeff, okay, I'll mark it that I reviewed it and I can even sign off on the approval. So now if I go back to that assessment prep center for my contract manager page, it's been approved by me today. So this assessment prep center is just viewing all of those little compliance review boxes on every page in one listing here. So you can see holistically, kind of how, what's the status of your overall FutureFeed environment as far as the data and accuracy and getting it reviewed. How I would recommend you use this is whenever you go into any sort of official assessment, whether it's an internal assessment or an external assessment, you might want to conduct a review and approval or update if needed of your FutureFeed environment before going into that assessment. Because remember, a lot of the fields in FutureFeed are all the data that you're putting into FutureFeed is being used to build your system security plan or other documents, okay? So
Sorry, I missed where's this assessment prep center?
it's over under dashboards.
Okay.
Yep, you find it?
Yes.
All right. Okay, and so that's the assessment prep center and what it is. All of these link to a page. You can click to the page. For a contract manager page, I'd probably assign it to someone who deals with contracts at my company, because you can see this page is capturing cage codes, and the contracts that your company has. The critical dates, this is another project management tool. So this is specific for CMMC. And what it is you can lay out or plan for and track the overall project plan for obtaining CMMC certification. All right. So here is when you're starting to work on the, the requirements and implement them, creating the SSP, getting compliant, and then next step would be to engage a C3PAO to conduct that certification assessment. Or, this is very specific to level 2 and level 3. If you were doing a self-assessment, you could just plan for your self-assessment here and ignore the C3PAO. But this is when you're actually doing your assessment. Then after the assessment, if you have any findings, okay, depending on the findings and what's their score, you could end up failing some requirements, in which case you have 180 days to remediate those, get them implemented and validated. So you're going to want to track that date. Then after you get the assessment, or after you get your certificate, it's going to be good for 3 years, and you have to get assessed again in 3 years. So when is that next assessment going to happen? When do you need to start preparing for that? As you check these circles, it will take a screenshot of your system security plan. So hopefully you'll see improvement in your score along the project, not like you see here in this training environment.
We only get those snapshots though if not in the core bundle, right? In the CMMC level 2.
Do you see, are you on this page on yours? You don't see the view snapshot. So what you won't
No,
see, it's grayed out.
yeah.
So you have to click watch, if I click this, it's now generating for me a system security plan. And then I will be able to view that system security plan, but it's in my score. So now I can view it.
Ah, okay.
Yep. So it's just kind of like locking in your current compliance status at that time. All right. So after that, you have 2 sections to view responsibilities. So we'll get into responsibilities and how they get assigned in FutureFeed here in a little bit. If you're in the business of managing a team, then you can see all the team members. Anybody who has access to your FutureFeed environment, has an account to your FutureFeed environment, would be listed here, and then you can see all of their responsibilities they have. Responsibilities, we use the RACI model. You can assign tasks in FutureFeed, and you can assign poems to people in FutureFeed. So we'll go over all these, but if you want to see what's assigned to you, again, either RACI, tasks, or poems, here I have all of the controls or all the requirements that are assigned to me, any tools, technology assets that get assigned to me, any documentation, if I had any tasks, and all my poem items. All right, so that's the dashboard. You got some compliance metrics. You have the ability to plan a review of your FutureFeed environment and get the different sections of your FutureFeed environment approved, plan out some critical dates, and view responsibilities. Let's go on to start then. Okay, so here's the start area. We're going to cover company information, scope, contracts, data inventory, and settings. A lot of this information in this start area, it's building out that top portion of your system security plan. When you see an asterisk, so here by the address, when you see an asterisk, that means that field is going to be used to fill out your system security plan. This information will be shown in your SSP. So the corporate data, pretty self-explanatory, just company logo, name, address. Down here, you have an area to identify your company's approach to handling risk. Where this information would come into play or where you would use this then is when you're working in your system when you're working in your system POAM, which we call your FutureFeed POAM. And when you have to start prioritizing remediation efforts, then typically you factor in risk and impact and effort and cost and all that stuff. Okay, so here's just where you would document the company's risk approach. Hover over the green dots for more information, or again, check out that getting started guide for some more guidance. Company description, pretty self-explanatory here as well, just more about the company. You have a place to identify cybersecurity IT budget and identify if your company holds cybersecurity insurance, and if you do, what does it cover and the coverage dates. Locations is pretty important. Okay, so I guess just speaking about CMMC, one of the things you have to do is you have to develop an assessment scope. You have to identify all of the assets in your company that need to meet and adhere to NIST SP 800-171. Okay, also referred to as your assessment scope or your compliance boundary. And an asset can be a location. It can be people. People can be assets in the world of CMMC, and tools, technology are assets. Okay, so locations, people, and technology. So any locations that your company owns, operates, manages, utilizes, you're going to want to hit new location, then log that location. After you log it, then go ahead and open it up and start filling out this metadata. I'm going to go over a lot of these fields here in a little bit when I start talking about tools or technology. So I'm not going to go over each one of them now. But the important thing I want to point out to you is this compliance. So if this location had added CUI data, then I would click on this CUI icon and then identify the type of data that is being stored, processed, or transmitted at that location. Okay, just click the box.
I think this is more a better question probably for the 15 minutes, but for a primarily work from home workforce, are you adding individual locations for all the home addresses or just the main headquarters?
That's really that'll be up to you, I guess, and how many home locations you have to log. I've seen it done both ways. Where maybe you just close out of here. Maybe I just create one called home office and then leave some of this blank or figure out a way to fill it out. So you could create one entry just representing all home offices. Or if you don't have too many, you could create separate entries. It's up to you. I will, obviously you'll want to just have that information somewhere, whether you spell it out directly in FutureFeed or retain like a listing of those locations elsewhere. An assessor will want to know of them and ask you about them. But
Thanks.
the reason why I think one would be sufficient is because I would assume that the documentation, you probably educate all of the employees the same way as far as securing any CUI data in the home office and what is expected of them and all the policies and procedures and processes. I'm assuming it would be, kind of the same. So that's another thing to factor in is control of those home offices and what, if you have different requirements for whatever reason, or you're communicating different requirements for the different home offices, then you can have multiple entered here.
You have a suggestion for what to put in for the address?
Yeah, just maybe just a funny address that reminds, yes, anything. Yeah.
Thank you much.
All right, so yep, but important piece is to identify if there's CUI at that location, or you can also identify if there's FCI at that location, okay? The other stuff here I'm going to cover when I get to the technology area, but I did want to call out, since you're defining your assets, your assessment scope, you're going to want to define which locations are part of that assessment scope. And to do that, you're going to use that CUI icon here or the FCI icon. Maintenance and ownership. So here you're just defining at a high level who owns and manages hardware and software. I did provide an example of how I would write this up in the Getting Started guides under the compliance implications if you're interested. But this is not where you're going to provide a complete listing of hardware and software. That's found under documents. This is just high level description of what kind of information types are in your assessment scope, who manages them, and who owns them. Scope, here where this is where you're going to start defining the system a little bit more. So you're going to name your system, give it a unique identifier, identify the scope type. If you need some guidance on the scope types here, check out, again, the Getting Started guides. I define what program Enclave, OU is, or enterprise-wide implementation. Describe the system boundary and the purpose of the system. You can see a lot of this information has the asterisk, so a lot of this is being pulled to build out that system security plan. Contracts, cage code, or cage codes, you can have more than one, but you're going to want to identify at least one that's associated with this environment. And the contracts that your company has, just hit new contract. This is kind of an important piece when it comes to compliance, okay? Identifying the contracts that are introducing FCI data or CUI data into your environment is critical, and tracking some of the other clauses. Data inventory. So here you're defining for this environment, is it FCI? Is there FCI information? What are the FCI assets? And then if it is a CUI environment as well, what type of CUI data do you have? So this page may be blank for you. This FCI data inventory page may be blank. As you can see here, I have tools listed out, some technology. Over here under the tools area, when you start adding in your technology, then this will become populated here. So then you'll just, first add your technology, then revisit the FCI data inventory page, and then identify what assets store, process, or transmit FCI data. Okay, so here I have an application. Oops, sorry, I hit the back button. Here I have application database. Yes, it stores, processes, and transmit FCI data. Let's see. Vulnerability management tool does not store, process, or transmit FCI data. It only performs vulnerability scans. Okay, so it's just simple as toggling on and off what does. Store, process, or transmit FCI data. Now, CUI data a little bit differently. There's a lot more categories here listed out. So what you'll do here is for your environment, identify the CUI type. If possible, I know sometimes that's a little bit hard to do because that's not really being communicated to you guys. But if possible, define the type of CUI you're working with. Okay, so you can see here in this training environment, I'll have a lot filled out. Okay, but I'll pretend we're handling export controlled data. So let's pretend you're handling export controlled data. The first thing you're going to want to do is click on this hyperlink. This is going to bring you to the NARA website. Okay, that's important because, as you may be aware, there is a requirement for you to mark CUI data. So you're going to want to know how to mark it appropriately. And this page here is going to tell you exactly how it needs to be marked. Specifically down here as well. So what type of data are you working with? Here you'd have to figure out who's the dissemination authority. So where's that data coming from? And then based on that information, you'll know if it's basic CUI or specified CUI. Once you figure out if it's basic or specified, then go back to FutureFeed and you can see here we have a basic or a CUI specified. Okay, so let's just pretend you said it's CUI specified. You can leave it as just this check mark. That's fine. This is telling me as an assessor that somewhere in this environment you are storing, processing, or transmitting export controlled CUI data. Now, if you want to take it a step further to call out specific devices that are storing and processing, transmitting that data, that's when this wrench will show up. Okay, so to get that to show up, what you'll have to do is go into the asset, the technology asset or the location asset, and identify that it is storing, processing, or transmitting export controlled data. So let me go back to that location asset. Locations. Let's say at my headquarters, we are storing, processing, or transmitting export controlled data specified. Okay, so now I check that box. And if I go back to my CUI data inventory now and I scroll down, instead of a check mark, there's the wrench there. So now I'm saying that my headquarters location is storing, processing, or transmitting this type of data. Up here under CTI, you can see you have locations and assets. So you could, identify multiple assets that are storing, processing, or transmitting that type of data. So it's up to you how detailed you want to get, if you want to leave a check mark or, call out specific devices. I will say that if you choose to call out specific devices, what that can help you do is there's one requirement in the AC family for you to control the flow of CUI. Okay, and it starts talking about defining information control policies, methods, sources, destinations, mechanisms. Okay, and so if you use that page to identify specific assets, you can kind of link it back to this control if you want to under the summary notes. All right, so that's the CUI data.
But putting into that summary notes, that's a manual process that doesn't happen automatically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a manual process.
And that was clicking under that wrench.
The summary notes, no, I got to them under the specific control.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you have a place sensitive data inventory. So this is if you want to track other data. You can see if you scroll to the bottom, you can come up with your own category. So, PII, employee PII, HIPAA data, any other data other than FCI or CUI, if you're interested in identifying that, tracking it, and making sure it gets remains in this secured environment, you can do so here. Or you don't have to use this page altogether. All right, and then settings, you can integrate with your ticketing system. Just drop that ticketing system email like you see here. Ours is support@futurefeed.co. By the way, ours is support@futurefeed.co. So if you ever have an issue with FutureFeed or you need help desk, just email us. It will create a ticket for us and we will address it. But you could put anybody's or any email here, just a kind of a trick. If you don't have a ticketing system, but maybe you have some, you would like to email some compliance management folks occasionally on poem projects or poem actions, you can put their email, maybe create a shared inbox, and all your compliance management team can have access to that shared inbox to get poem status updates. If it's enabled, then where you will see this is, I'll show you one place you'll see it. If I go over to the poem and let me zoom out. Over here, you see this email to ticket system little icon. Click on that. Now I would be emailing my ticketing system on this poem item that I can create additional notes here, status updates, what have you, and hit send. If it's not enabled, then you're just not going to be able to click on this email icon, this mail icon. You'll see it, it'll be grayed out, but you're not going to be able to click on it. That means you don't have this enabled. Okay. Poem. So in FutureFeed, there's a few things that are going to trigger a poem to be created. When it is created, it will be populated with a default due date. So that way you can't forget to set one. You can control what that default due date is here. So if I made a poem today, it would be due 3 quarters from now. Know that when you do make a system poem entry in here in FutureFeed, you're going to be able to change that due date. You can change it, but it's just going to be pre-populated with a default. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, when over here under your FutureFeed poem, okay, when you start working on remediating any system flaws or vulnerabilities, or even start implementing some of the requirements you don't have yet implemented. Okay, when you start working in your system poem, you prioritize remediation efforts or work based on impact, effort, and cost. You can, I guess, you can prioritize them based on impact, effort, and cost if you choose to use this. So what you're doing here is you're just defining what impact, effort, and cost mean for your company. Okay, if you're a smaller company, a low cost item may be $500. If you're a very large company, a low cost item may be $5,000. Okay, so just work with the appropriate personnel at your company to define these. And now whoever makes a system poem entry has the option when you make a poem, here's a poem for my software inventory list. Well, what's the impact, effort, and cost associated with that one item? And then in FutureFeed, multiple people can make poem items. And you're going to want them to all be speaking the same language and using that same scale. So after you set the impact, effort, and cost on that page, you can visit it up here in the top right corner. There's this little ruler. So you can pull it up at any time and see what that definition was. All right, so that was over in this. Okay, framework, you can disable the FedRAMP warning that pops up if you're an admin. And if, that's only recommended to do so if your company doesn't have any FedRAMP requirements for a tool like this. Okay, that's the start area. Any questions on the start area? Okay. People. So in the people area, this is where you're going to create access, give access to your future feed environment. And you're also going to start identifying by recording other people in your company uh, that have some responsibility with implementing these requirements or maintaining that implementation. Okay. So it's where you're creating accounts and defining people involved in your overall compliance management efforts. You have to be an admin to actually create an account. So if you are an admin, you just hit new user, employee, third party, assessor, first name, last name, give the email, and what kind of access do you want? Standard, admin, or are they an assessor and you should give them assessor access? Standard access, anybody with standard access, they're going to have access to your whole FutureFeed environment. Okay? Admin access, they have access to your whole FutureFeed environment and they can create accounts and manage some of the subscription stuff. Assessors are they only access and they can only view, someone with an assessor role can only view your system security plan page here. They can only view it, they can't edit or revise anything. And they can view the compliance dashboard, this chart here. Okay. So that's what the assessor can view. You would give assessor access, to any C3PAO assessors who are willing to view your system security plan and view your evidence in FutureFeed, in your FutureFeed environment, or any internal assessors you want. At this time, that's just the three roles we have: standard, admin, and assessor. We are working on deploying more role-based access or discretionary access controls in the future, but right now that's what we have. Now, this no access thing is why we have that is you're not creating an account, but essentially you would be logging that person as an employee or as a person involved with your compliance efforts. So, you know, why that's important is then when you go over to the manage roles and you start creating security roles or identifying your security roles and tagging people in them. So let's say down here we have a server administrator. Well, this listing of people that I have here is, if I want that person's name to show up, I have to create them a no access account to FutureFeed. So that way I can identify them by name. They don't have access to my FutureFeed environment, but I can identify them by name in here as responsible for something. Okay. So under manage roles, what you're doing is you're defining your security related roles. Just add new role to create more. We have some default here. And if you don't want to use them, you can just mark them not applicable. This default accountable role, what this is in FutureFeed, wherever you see the RACI model for responsibility assignments. So for example, let me open one up for a technology. Here we have this RACI model. Well, this accountable here, you can set a default accountable role who will be accountable for everything in FutureFeed that has this RACI model, that uses the RACI model. So that means for the technology, they would be the default accountable. For documents, they would be default accountable. For controls, they would be default accountable. And for system POEM items, they would be default accountable. Okay. So that's this default accountable role. You could set who automatically is assigned as accountable when you create an item. Okay. Um, manage teams. So after you identify users who need access to your FutureFeed environment and users at your company who are going to have some security related responsibility, then you build out your security related roles and get people assigned to them. And then you build out your security related teams and get assigned to them, or people assigned to them. See here, we got like human resource team. Well, I created the human resource team because I know my HR is responsible for performing onboarding, training. And they also do the background screening for new employees. And they initiate the user access request process. Okay, so that's why I called them out. So you just need to build out the teams. Think about all of the requirements. Think about the NIST 800-171 requirements, and any, all the roles and the teams that are involved with getting those implemented and compliant. That's who you'll create here.
You can apply the roles to individual users or teams, is that right?
No, you can't. I don't think you can't apply a role to a team, just people.
Well, when you were on the page, on that manage teams page, wasn't there a list of roles on that HR team?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, if I open up the team, yeah, I can assign roles to the team, but not teams to the role. Opposite. So I can put roles on this team here.
And these are the roles that you define on that other page that you were just on.
Yep, exactly. And the same thing, your employees and everybody you've created will be listed here. And then it's just as easy as tag in the people you want part of it. Making someone a team leader if you choose to. Okay. What this populate thing here is all about. All right, let me show you where we got that from. And to do that, I want to bring your attention to the CMMC documents. So just to point out, since I'm here, if you Google DoD CIO CMMC documents, you'll get to this page. Click on the resources. This is like a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about CMMC and NIST 171. But I'm going here because I want to pull up this assessor's guide. So this is all C3PAO assessors who come and evaluate your level of compliance. They are taught to use this assessment guide. Okay. And many of them do rely heavily on it. So let me go to one here.
Where was the link on that last page for this?
Just Google DoD CIO CMMC documents.
All right,
Or,
I got it.
okay, all right. So here I opened up the assessor's guide. So this is what assessors are going to use. Okay, we're looking at, let's look at the next one. This one here. 318, limit unsuccessful logon attempts. To test this, to validate if you're doing this, they're going to examine some documents. So here they might look at your access control policy or procedures, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to examine some documents and they're going to interview people at your company. It says they could potentially interview, and this is just guidance, you would tell them who's doing this activity and who to interview. But potentially people with information security responsibilities, potentially system developers or system and network administrators, okay? Because look at limit unsuccessful logon attempts. This is a very technical requirement, and usually there's a configuration setting that needs to be applied on your systems. So it's saying interview system and network administrators because those are the people who are going to be applying those settings. So whenever we saw a role like this, if I go back to FutureFeed and I'm going to click on this populate button under the teams, populate, we have right here, network and system administrators, okay? So network and system administrators was mentioned under these 79 requirements, and there's my 3181. Okay. So it's just bulk team creation. It's pre-built teams in FutureFeed. And we built them because these were called out in the assessor's guide. It's pre-built teams that are already associated with the requirements. So then what you would want to do is you'd click on the team. Here, we'll create one for this physical security team. And if you notice here, it's all of the physical security requirements and another control that must have called it out. Hit create. Now, if I close out of here and I go find my physical security team, here it is, it's blank. Next thing I would want to do is add the people at my company who I know are going to be responsible for physical security. Okay, so I'd get them added. And now these people, I should have taken it a step slower, but let me show you here. If I go back to that physical security, there's 6 controls here. So let's go to 310.1. I'm going to go to 310.1. And under the interview section, do you see how the responsible people are, it's now my physical security team has been tagged as responsible. And these are the 2 people I have on that team. So you can quickly build teams out and get people assigned to those teams. And then they're already going to have some controls assigned to them. So now when Nate logs into FutureFeed, he's going to see that he's been identified as the person responsible to 310.1. And then maybe you have them go in and read the requirement and start answering the requirement, and start uploading evidence. Okay. So that's what that bulk team creation or populate button is here. Okay. So after you kind of just get us back on track, when you first get access to your FutureFeed environment, you're going to want to fill out this start area and then move on to people and get people access to your environment and start defining the security roles and teams. Then move on to technology or tools. And this is where you're going to start defining the technology assets that need to meet NIST 800-171. So you can see here, you have tools and services, on-prem, cloud, and service providers. You have a place to log any specific assets. Maybe this is completely up to you guys and how you want to document things in FutureFeed, but in the specific assets is where you would identify, any special assets that you want to call out for whatever reason. Maybe you call out the specific CUI assets, as you see here, what I did, because I want to really make sure that the requirements are implemented on those. Then you have vendors, place to identify any vendors, view the budget, IT, cyber budget, and you have a place to upload vulnerability scans. Note, it does need to be in a CSV file format to upload the scan. Once you do, then every time you upload them, you'll start seeing trends analysis, and FutureFeed will create for you. Like if I uploaded a report today and there was 5 open findings on it, open vulnerabilities, then FutureFeed is going to create for me 5 POAM entries for those open vulnerabilities. Okay.
Is there a list of, it says it supports specific tools, there's a list of tools, which tools it supports?
I'm assuming it's the ones that can produce a CSV output file.
That's pretty generic and vague.
Okay. Yeah, I have not asked that question, nor do I have ever used this specific page because I don't perform any vulnerability management for FutureFeed. But if you try it out and it doesn't work, or you got further questions, just email the support team and they'll respond. Okay. All right, so in the tools area and in the documents area, I want to show you what I'm about to say is applicable to both sections. So you have this active area, and then if I scroll down, these are pending. So active means things are these assets that I say list here, these are in production. They're being used today. Pending are things that my company plans to acquire and implement in the future. Same thing with documents. So we have active documents. These are approved, in place documents. And then for anything that I'm still working on developing, I'll list down here under my pending documents, meaning they're still in draft. I'm still working on them. So if I create an entry down here under pending, then whatever I create, it's going to be it's going to be added to my system POAM. So let's say I'm working on some incident response recovery procedures, and I hit add. Now I've just created an inventory item, a document inventory item for this procedure, and it's also over here under due date. It's on my system POAM, so I can track that document and make sure it gets finalized and approved and implemented in production or operations. Okay. If you happen to create something in the wrong place, let's say you just forgot about this and you hit the add up here and you created something up here. Let's say my media protection policy is not done. I'll just open it, and up here, this active and pending is where you're going to change the status. So I'm going to mark it pending, and I'm going to put it on my POAM either by quarters or due dates. Okay, and now I've just moved it down to that pending section. Just give it a minute here. All right. And I might need to refresh my page if it's not down here. Oh, it's already there. Okay. All right. So under tools, what you're going to do is you're going to start, and you have kind of two approaches. I've seen where FutureFeed clients, they decide to only log the technology they know that needs to meet NIST 800-171. So they choose to only create entries for those tools and services that are part of their assessment scope compliance boundary. Okay. But then I've also seen clients of FutureFeed, they choose to log everything. From my recommendation, my viewpoint in doing compliance management for a long time, I tend to say log everything. Okay, obviously, if you're a giant company and you have 50 different locations, but only one location needs to meet CMMC requirements, then in that scenario, I probably wouldn't choose to log everything because that'd be a lot of extra work. But I tend to lean towards logging everything. And why I say that is because when you log a technology in here, by the way, I refer to each one of these as an inventory item. So these are all my tool inventory items. If I go over to documents, these are all my document inventory items. And then I already showed you where the location inventory items are. So when you create an inventory item, click on it. In that compliance field, you have an area to categorize that asset. Okay. So why I say I would recommend logging everything and then rely on the compliance field to identify if that asset is in scope, meaning it's one of the first four, or it's out of scope. Now if you choose to log your out of scope assets in FutureFeed, the benefit is you can document your analysis. Okay, so once you identify all of the assets involved with storing, processing, transmitting, or protecting CUI data, you also have to identify those assets that are logically connected. That would be down here. But logging your out of scope assets is beneficial because if I say this is out of scope over in the overview section, then I can say why I said it's out of scope. So this is a Linux server. So here is where I would say, I would define my out of scope rationale. So here I would define why I said it's out of scope over here. And then under my evidence section, I would upload some evidence supporting my categorization. Okay? Because if you say something is out of scope, click on this little infograph here, and out of scope assets need to be physically or logically separated from your CUI assets. And so some potential evidence that you might want to house is evidence showing that logical separation. Maybe this asset sits on a different VLAN, or you have, you have proper logical separation in place, role-based or access separation in place, okay? So that's why I personally would recommend you log everything and then rely on this compliance asset category field to define what is in scope and what is out of scope. Especially if you've not done the whole scoping exercise yet and you're still trying to figure out what assets do need to meet the requirements, you're going to have to do that analysis and then just document that work in FutureFeed. Because sometimes it takes months to wait for an assessment. So if I make a decision today if something's out of scope, 6 months from now, a year from now, when I go into my assessment, am I going to remember what I said was out of scope and why I said it? And if I documented that result in the analysis in FutureFeed, I can quickly pull it up and, oh yeah, that's why I said it's out of scope. And oh yeah, here's evidence to show you why we said that's out of scope. Also, if I leave the company and just walk away and you guys hire someone else new, and then next thing you know, they need to figure out what was out of scope or in scope. Anyway, I digress. So under technology, your call if you want to choose to log assets that need NIST 171, or if you want to log them all. Either way, you'll hit the plus button. Mission is what is that asset? What is that tool doing for the company? So a mission could be like, MFA tool, which is Duo. Maybe I'm using Duo MFA or another, vulnerability scanner.
So mission is basically just the role like web server or domain controller or whatever,
Yep.
file server.
Yep. What's the role? What's the purpose of that asset?
You have some inconsistency on the naming because you have it in the list, it's called product name, but when you click on it, it's called brand or model.
Oh. Yeah. Good catch. I never saw that before. Okay. I'll look into that and see if we can get that changed right there. Okay, so then after you log an asset, what happens? You create an inventory item. Think of these as folders. So now you'll open up it and fill out this metadata. And I like to think of them as folders because you're capturing a lot of data in here and you can house other documents. So for this technology, this file server, who's responsible for it, who's accountable, needs to be consulted or informed. We're using the RACI model. If this file server was being managed or provided by an external service provider. So there was some shared responsibility there and some inheritance. Then you would associate it with a customer responsibility matrix. So you would find the customer responsibility matrix that is addressing this file server and link it. These customer responsibility matrices that you see here listed, yours is going to be empty. When you create under the documents, under reference documents is where you log your CRMs for the environment. Once you log these CRMs and you create the inventory items here by hitting add, then that's where they'll pop up in that listing, that drop-down listing here. Okay. Describe it, other stuff. You can upload documents for this asset. Connect. What we're doing here is we're linking the technology with the requirement. For example, let me go to one that has, let's do this tenable. Okay, and we are at time, so I'm going to wrap this up. But under the connect, what you're doing is you're identifying the requirements. So here I have a vulnerability management tool, and I'm linking it to the vulnerability management requirements. So hit the plus. You can search by keyword or the ID if you happen to know it, and just log them like this, add them, and now I've created an association between this vulnerability management tool and the requirements, painting the picture that my company is meeting this vulnerability scanning requirement using this tool. And if I go to that 311.2 control up here, then underneath in the area where I find my evidence, so up here, requirement, then if I go down, find my evidence, I have my tenable asset tagged. So what you're doing after you fill out people, create accounts, define your security roles and teams, then start logging your technology. After you log a technology, open up the inventory items folder, fill out all this metadata, start connecting it to the requirements under the connect field. Categorize the asset, that's important. Tasks, what you're doing here is you're creating initial tasks or recurring task. Initial tasks related with getting something implemented and compliant, and then you'll create recurring tasks to support what needs to happen throughout the year. So for example, here we have an annual baseline compliance audit. Someone needs to do a baseline compliance check for this file server.
Yeah. Trying to help you, but I need to know exactly, like, you got me confused.
Sorry, I muted you all. Okay, so let me get back in there. That's what you're doing for the tasks. And then evidence, when you complete the tasks, if I go in here and mark this annual baseline compliance audit as complete, it will ask me to upload evidence. I'll either upload some evidence showing task completion that I created, or I can link to that evidence, or I can even create a completely new document with a report, saying what was done. But when you close out a task, you have to upload evidence. You either have to upload it, link it, or create it. And then you hit save, complete the task. And now when I mark it complete, it's going to kick me over to the evidence section, and there's my completed task, and that's my report, had it been a good one. So in FutureFeed, when it comes to the tasks, think of all the tasks to get things compliant, to get things implemented, and things that need to happen throughout the year after you get things implemented. You'll create tasks for them in FutureFeed under the appropriate item. If I was working over under documents, once I create a document, open up the document, inventory item, fill out this metadata, hit connect, and create tasks. So over here in my incident response plan is where I'm going to create my annual incident response test task. So that way, when it gets completed, in my evidence, I'll have a history of all that activity that happened throughout the year that needed to. I'll show the assessor. And I'll also have, not only will I have the activity log and things marked as completed, but I will have all that evidence that was uploaded to FutureFeed when the task was actually completed. So I may have the results of my incident response test or my after action report uploaded in here. And so that's where we're at. I'm going to stop today. In the next session, I'll cover assess, system security plan, and POAM. You know, if you want to walk away with some guidance, I would say start here at the start area, fill out that data as much as you can, or get the different pages assigned to someone using this compliance review section. Under people, create those accounts, define users involved with compliance and compliance management, define your security roles and teams and get people assigned to them, and then log your technology under the tools area. After you log that technology, open it up and start filling out the metadata. It's important you get it connected to the requirements and you focus on the compliance tab.
And that FCI is where that would enable the FCI under the start. Is that right?
Yes. Here, yes or no, or you could go back to that other page and mark it as well. And then documents, same thing. Start logging all your security documents and then opening up the inventory items. For documents, you have the option to use our live document editor here where you can start working on and actually building out documents, editing documents, or you can attach whatever versions you have, or you can link to them over in the notes section. There's this link. You could put a URL link if it's on your SharePoint or something. Okay, so join the next session and then, we'll start the session by allowing you to ask questions about anything we covered today, and I'll go back and maybe cover a few things. If not, we'll cover the rest of the tool.
Is there any ability to import tools or sorry, assets, tools and services?
No, not at this point in time.
All right.
Sorry about that. All right, thank you all. I hope you have a good afternoon.
Thank you.